Hello everyone, and welcome back to my TEW 9 Marigold series. As I'm sure you can tell, it's been a while since I've last sat down and recorded, and I've had some time to think about what I want to do with this series going forward. So my plan begins with changing up how I present these videos. I want to move on from just show after show of fantasy booking and break down the fourth wall a bit to show you all more of the behind the scenes process. Because a lot of the fun that comes with TEW is not just the results of what I'm booking, but the actual company management as well. And we're going to be diving into that for a little bit before we get to the shows today. So with that, I want to take a look at our finances first, because as you've probably noticed watching the series, we are losing a lot of money. We lost $300,000 in August, and we're already over $100,000 in the red, not even halfway through September. And what I've noticed is that most of where this comes from is that we have a lot of workers under exclusive written contracts. Now, these are being paid per month, and when we're only running a handful of shows a month, the return on investment is really bad. Like, if we look here at Utami Hayashishita, her estimated cost to us is $700 per show and $12,200 per month, which means that the only way we're saving money on her is if we're running 18 or more shows per month, which we are not doing maybe outside of this month with the Dream Star Grand Prix going on. But unfortunately, there's a lot of these people that we're not able to negotiate with right now because we can't talk to workers that are under exclusive written contracts. So for some of them, we won't really be able to do anything about how much they're costing us for like 2 years. But if we look at Mai Sakurai, for instance, her contract is coming up soon, so we'll be able to negotiate her to a paid per show deal in this video. Like, if we look at Bozilla, she's also under an exclusive written deal, but she's only costing us $60 per show, which is basically a drop in the bucket when it comes to how much debt that the other contracts are putting us in. So we'll be negotiating with Mai pretty shortly and getting her under a deal that's similar to what Bozilla has to save us some money going forward. And while we're still here, we can see that one of the people we're paying per month is Fuka, who's actually only on a written deal. So we can negotiate with her immediately and get her on a much less expensive contract. So we're going to negotiate with her and we're going to get her on a new written deal where we're only paying her per show. So this is going to save us a lot of money as she's currently valued at $21,000 a month and we'll only be paying her $380 per show for 2 years. So there's a massive pay cut and we'd actually have to run over 50 shows a month for that per month deal to be worth it. And on top of our current contract situation, I also want to reconsider the talent that I'm bringing into the company. As you might have noticed in previous videos, there's a handful of blurred names on the assistant ticker here. And those are people that I've signed and planned on debuting shortly, but most of them I've already offered new contracts to, and I'm just going to quietly let them go from the company in about a month's time. Because I'm sure a lot of you know, if you also play TEW, that it can be very easy to get lost and just want to sign all your favorite wrestlers and build this awesome dream roster. But I think when I bring in all these top freelancers and people who are already really popular, it just kind of starts to defeat the purpose of having this smaller company. So in my mind, I don't want to see Marigold thrive because we brought in bigger names to get there. I would love to build up the roster that we already have and turn some of our lesser players into major ones. So I'm going to be reevaluating who gets to come in, both for like Japanese wrestlers and for foreign wrestlers. So going forward, I'm going to be looking to bring in people who I think can help us in the long term rather than just in the short term. But there is a caveat with that in that I'm currently playing as the booker. So I have owner goals that are set by Rasi Ogawa and I can't just bring in whoever I want to sign if they're not good enough or not what he's looking for. But before we reach out to anyone, we're going to look at who is already employed for us. Because while they are involved in the Dream Star Grand Prix that's currently going on, I'm not really sure about keeping the likes of Takumi Iroha, Unagi Sayaka, and Megan Bain going forward. It's not like they haven't been putting up great numbers for us on the tour, but at the end of the day, they're already way bigger than Marigold and aren't really the kind of people we should be looking to build our company around. So as good as they've been for us, Takumi, Unagi, and Megan are probably going to be cut short from the company after the tournament, and we'll just keep them on a short list for the future in case we want to use them down the line. And while we're looking at our roster, there's one person that I want to bring in who works for Marigold in real life, and is someone that I think would make a great addition to the company in game as well. And that is Catmask Calico, who is now known as Hummingbird in Marigold. She's basically the Starlight Kid equivalent for Marigold, and she's very cheap at only $30 per show. Her stats, they definitely leave a lot to be desired, but she does only have 1 year of experience. So she's in that young lion stage where she'll be growing rapidly with like every match that she has. So I think she's worth taking the gamble on and hoping that she has a lot of potential, because I think she'd be a great addition to the Superfly division. So we're going to bring in Hummingbird, but that's actually going to break one of our owner goals. So this is what I was talking about, where I can't just sign anybody that I want to. So if we go to take a look at our current owner goals, we can't hire anybody who is a brawler, has a reputation less than 45, or psychology less than 45. And if we go back to Hummingbird, she only has 30 psychology. So unless her psychology stat improves a lot working independent shows, she's probably going to be out of our reach until that goal expires, which is in about 2 years. So I've just added Cat Mask Calico, aka Hummingbird, to our shortlist, and we're just going to keep an eye on her and hope that she gets a decent amount of growth from the indie shows. Then we can look to bring her in the future. And the last thing that I want to look at before we get into actually booking the shows is I want to view our merchandise sales. Because at our current level of merchandise, we're making $1 per fan in attendance and $3 per popularity point per region. And at the next level, we would be getting $2.50 per fan and $5 per popularity point per region, which would be making us more money off of merchandise and pretty much double what we're currently making, but it's also $750 a month to run. And it would take us $250 a week for 10 weeks to upgrade that rapidly. So that would be about $2,500 to get there. However, I think I am going to go through with it, even though that's kind of a lot of money to put into something, as I just want to get to the point that we're selling worker-specific merchandise, because when we get there, especially if we have a lot of like popular talent who have attributes like easily marketable, we're going to bring in a ton of money through merchandise. So it's kind of like a spend money now and make money later type thing with merchandise. So we're going to take a gamble on it, and we're going to start the merchandise upgrade. And one final thing before we get to the show, we have skipped ahead a day, and Mai Sakurai's contract has come up, so we're going to negotiate with Mai and take the first step in getting us back into the green, because she's currently being paid $7,300 per month. So if we're only paying her like $220 per show, that's going to be a very big money save for us. But because she's going to lose opportunities elsewhere, she does want more money. So let's try $250. No, let's try $280. Still no. Let's try $300. And Mai is willing to do $300, which is a bit more than I was expecting, but it's still a lot cheaper than what we were paying her before. So since she would want a $300 pay increase on her per month deal as well, we're making the right call where we don't run like 25 shows a month. So we're going to make this contract offer official before we get into the first show of the video. And we are going to be doing nights 7 to 12 of the Dream Star Grand Prix in this video. And the next one will be the final block nights and the final itself. So let's first sign Mai to this new deal and then get straight into the action. And we kick things off on night 7 in Shinkiba First Ring in front of 273 people with tag team action as Koki Amare and Koharu Hinata team up against Fallon Henley and Komomo Minami. And it is Fallon picking up the victory for herself and Komomo when she submits Koharu Hinata with a rear naked choke in just under 9 minutes. 36 rated performances from both Koki and Koharu, a 32 from Fallon Henley, and Komomo was struggling to keep up with an 18. She was also off her game, and Koki is still slowed by her injury, but not too bad for the opening match as we get a 36 for the segment rating, and it gets the show off to a strong start. And up next, Mai Sakurai teams up with Momoka Hanazono against Nagisa Nozaki and Kohaku, and Nozaki gets the win for her team by pinning Momoka with a fashionable kick in 10:53. Nagisa also gets the best performance of the match, carrying the match with a 51, and then a lot further down, 38, 37, and 36 from Momoka, Kohaku, and Mai Sakurai respectively. 46 for the segment rating isn't too bad at all for this one. Then we move on to Utami Hayashishita and Nao Ishikawa taking on Myla Grace and Yuki Minami. And it is of course Utami Hayashishita who picks up the victory over Yuki Minami in just under 10 minutes. Utami was head and shoulders above everyone else as we expect with a 50. Now Ishikawa wasn't too bad with a 32, Myla Grace with a 23, and Yuki Minami with only a 15, but a segment rating of 40 for this match. And we head to Natsumi Shozuki teaming with Rei Aseto against Unagi Sayaka and Natsu Sumire, and Unagi Sayaka picks up the victory for her team by pinning Rei Aseto in 12:28. Unagi was head and shoulders above the rest as well as she pulled a 54. Natsumi and Natsu both had a 41, and Rei Aseto was the weak link with just 17. But we get 48 for the segment rating, which isn't bad at all. Then we move on to the final tag team match of the night, where Miku Aono and Yuna Manase face Misa Matsui and Kizuna Tanaka, and it is Miku picking up the victory over Kizuna in 12 minutes 15 seconds. Miku also did the best in the match with a 50. Misa wasn't far behind at all with a 48. Yuna Manase with 43, and Kizuna was the weak link with a 32. And actually, Misa Matsui and Kizuna Tanaka had great chemistry when teaming together, which is really good for us because Kizuna Tanaka and Victoria Yuzuki actually have bad chemistry with each other. So it looks like Kizuna might have a new partner going forward if we decide to capitalize on this. But we'll think on that later as we get a segment rating of 50 for this one, which is pretty good to close out the first half of the show. And speaking of Victoria Yuzuki, we get to our first Dream Star Grand Prix A block match of the night, and it is between Chika Goto and Victoria Yuzuki. We both come into this match on 0 points, and Yuzuki picks up the victory in just over 10 minutes. She was really off her game and she pulled a 32, while Chika Goto only pulled a 30. We get a segment rating of 35, so not really spectacular, but Victoria Yuzuki does get her first 2 points on the board, while Chika Goto remains at 0. And Yuzuki will be looking to continue this momentum and build a bit of a hot streak to keep herself alive in the tournament when she faces Chiaki on night 9, while Chika Goto is going to have another tall task if she wants to get her first points on the board, as she faces one half of the Marigold Twin Star champions Mirai. Up next, Bozilla faces off against Zeta Steel. Bozilla has been doing great in the A block so far, and she's currently tied at the top of the block with Takumi Iroha, and she picks up a win against Zeta Steel here tonight in 10 minutes 31 seconds, breaking away to 9 points and potential leadership of the block by the end of the night. Bozilla got an in-ring performance of 39 and Zeta Steel with a 21, and the bout dragged in the middle with a lack of flow being noticeable, so we end up with a segment rating of 29, which is still not the worst. And up next for Bozilla, she has the chance to fully cement herself as the leader of the block when she faces Takumi Iroha. Both of them currently have the same record in this tournament and are the undefeated block leaders, but that could all change in their match with each other. While Zeta Steel, who is far behind but not out at 4 points, faces off with the veteran Nanai Takahashi to try and get the ball rolling again. From there, we get to the aforementioned Takumi Iroha stepping up against the massive Megan Bayne, and Takumi does manage to pull out the victory after almost 19 minutes, which ties her at the top of the block with Bozilla once again. Takumi is still working through that injury, but she managed to score an in-ring performance of 69, which is very nice. And Megan Bayne didn't do awful herself with a 41. This one gets a 65 for the segment rating, which is the best match of the night so far. And coming up for these two, as we mentioned, it will be Bozilla and Takumi Iroha facing off for that top spot in the block, while Megan Bayne has a massive opportunity of her own against the reigning Marigold World Champion Sari. And while we're talking about the Marigold World Champion, Sari is in tournament action now against Chiaki, and she of course picks up the victory in just under 15 minutes with a Sunray dropkick. This bumps her up to 8 points, currently at 2nd place in the A block, and Chiaki currently remains at just 2. Sari gets an in-ring performance of 62 as she continues to be in amazing form. Chiaki pulls a 31, which isn't bad at all for her, and we get a segment rating of 56 for the semifinal match tonight. And just as we mentioned, up next for Sari is her match with the biggest member of the field, Megan Bayne, while Chiaki faces off with Victoria Yuzuki, and both of them look to get up to 4 points and stay alive in the tournament. Finally, we get to our main event as Mirai faces off with Nanai Takahashi, and it is Mirai getting the victory by submission with a Miramare in 17 minutes and 40 seconds. This now brings her to just 6 points, as Mirai has had a bit of a rough go in the tournament so far, but she's still very much alive, and I believe Nanai Takahashi is as well, as she remains at 4 points. Mirai pulling the better performance of the match as she gets a 53, but Nanai Takahashi isn't that far behind, pulling a 51. We get a segment rating of 57 for our main event. And coming up next for Mirai, she might have an easy path to another 2 points against Chika Goto, who is still not on the board after 5 matches. And Nanae Takahashi looks to get another 2 points for herself against the real deal Zeta Steel. We close out the show with an overall rating of 56, and we increased our popularity in 45 regions. We made a profit of $3,352 on this show, but that doesn't seem like it'll make a dent in our long-term finances. And we're also getting some gradual popularity growth throughout the West, Europe, and through Australia. And before we get to the next show, we can confirm that Fuka has accepted our contract offer, and she is now going to be making $380 per show, so we'll be saving a lot of money on her going forward. Now we get to night 8 of the Dream Star Grand Prix, where we are back in Shinkiba First Ring in front of 267 people. And we kick off the show with Chiaki and Natsu Sumire teaming up against Victoria Yuzuki and Yuna Manase. And it is Chiaki who picks up the victory for her team by submission as she taps out Yuna Manase in just over 9 minutes. Natsu gets the best in-ring performance of the match with a 43, Yuna getting a 35, Chiaki with 33 and Yuzuki with 30. And Victoria, Yuzuki, and Yuna Manase also have absolutely zero chemistry as partners, so Yuzuki's struggle to find a tag team partner that she can work with continues. But this does get a 42 segment rating, which isn't bad at all to kick off the show, and it got it off to a strong start. And up next is Nanae Takahashi teaming with Yuki Minami against Zeta Steel and Koharu Hinata, and Zeta picks up the win for her team when she pins Yuki in about 10 minutes. Nanae Takahashi is head and shoulders above everyone else as expected, as she gets an in-ring performance of 49. Koharu Hinata doesn't do too bad as she pulls a 33. Zeta gets a 26, and Yuki was really off her game and only pulled a 15. We get a segment rating of 40 for this one. Then we move on to Mirai and Komomo Minami taking on Chika Goto and Kizuna Tanaka, where Kizuna picks up the victory by submitting Komomo with a cross-arm breaker in 11-11. Mirai was head and shoulders above the rest with an in-ring performance of 45, while Kizuna pulled a 35, Chika Goto pulled a 31, and Komomo only got a 17. And it looks like Komomo and Mirai also don't work well as a team. But interestingly enough, Chika Goto seems to have a strong connection with the young female demographic, and they were very happy to see her pick up the win. This gets a segment rating of 40, as we move along to Bozilla forming an unlikely team with Momoka Hanazono to take on Takumi Iroha and Kohaku. But it is actually Momoka who picks up the victory for her team when she pins Kohaku with a surprise cradle in just under 12 minutes. Takumi is still slowed by injury, but still pulling the best performances of any match, as tonight she gets a 68. Bozilla gets a 42 for this one, Kohaku right behind her with 41, and Momoka was really off her game, only pulling a 37. And we get a very solid segment rating of 56 for this match. Then we get to our final tag team match of the night as Sari teams up with Nao Ishikawa to take on Megan Bayne and Rhea Seto. And it is Sari who picks up the win for herself and Ishikawa when she pins Rhea Seto with a Sunray dropkick. Sari was also head and shoulders above the rest as we expect, as she pulled a 57, Megan Bayne getting a 43, Nao Ishikawa with a 30, and Rhea Seto is quite a bit down there with an 18. We get a segment rating of 48 before we get to tonight's B-Block matches, where we kick off the tournament action with Koki Amare taking on Fallon Henley, and Fallon picks up another win in this tournament in 13 minutes and 19 seconds, as she now heads to a tied second place at 6 points, and Koki is still on just 1 point. Koki is still slowed by injury as well, but she gets the better in-ring performance with a 36, and Fallon isn't too far behind her with a 32. This match gets a segment rating of 38. And coming up next for these two women, Fallon Henley will be facing the current undefeated block leader Unagi Sayaka, while Koki Amare has a tall task of her own against the reigning United National Champion Miku Aono. Then in our second tournament match of the night, we get Mai Sakurai facing off with Nagisa Nozaki, and Nagisa picks up the victory in 15 minutes 25 seconds with a fashionable kick, pinning one half of the Twin Star champions. Nagisa now sits tied at the top of the block with 8 points, but that can of course change by the end of the night, while Mai Sakurai is not having the best performance so far, sitting on only 3 points. Nagisa also gets the better in-ring performance as she gets a 52, and Mai Sakurai gets a 38, but a segment rating of 50 is solid and the best match of the night so far, as coming up on night 10 for the victorious Nagisa Nozaki is a big main event spot against the tournament favorite Utami Hayashishita, while Mai Sakurai finds herself in a champion versus champion encounter against the Superfly champion Natsumi Shozuki. And next up for tonight, Utami Hayashishita faces off against Myla Grace. And just as anticipated, it is Utami picking up the win in a little under 12 minutes when she pins Myla with a Samoan drop. And after a rough start to the tournament, Utami is starting to get some momentum back as she takes herself to 6 points. And Myla is still at just 2 points, but those coming over one half of the Twin Star champions Mai Sakurai. Utami naturally gets the better in-ring performance with a 51, and Myla Grace only pulls a 19. A segment rating of 44 for this one is not too bad at all. And coming up next for Utami is that big main event clash that we mentioned against Nagisa Nozaki, while Myla Grace will be in the opening block match on night 10 against the speed star Misa Matsui. Getting to the semifinal match of the evening, the Superfly champion Natsumi Shozuki has a very tough challenge against the undefeated Unagi Sayaka, who could be the first woman in either block to get 10 points. But it is actually Natsumi Shozuki picking up the victory with a surprise cradle after 15 minutes and 23 seconds, handing Unagi her first loss of the tournament. Unagi now stays at 8 points while Natsumi has picked up her biggest win of the tournament so far and is currently at 7. Unagi was off her game tonight as she got an in-ring performance of 47, Natsumi getting an in-ring performance of 39, and a segment rating of 49 for our penultimate block match of the night. And Natsumi is going to be looking to ride this momentum into a win over one half of the Twin Star champions Mai Sakurai on night 10 of the tournament, while Unagi Sayaka has to attempt to bounce back from tonight's loss against Fallon Henley. And lastly, it's time for our main event as the United National Champion Miku Aono takes on Misa Matsui. And after 18.5 minutes, Miku does come away with the win after she pins Misa with a lariat. Miku has now risen to 6 points in the tournament and finally has a winning record after a few tough losses, while Misa Matsui remains on only 3 points. Miku also gets the better in-ring performance with a 47, but not by much as Misa gets a 45, a segment rating of 51 for our main event. And coming up next for Miku Aono, she faces off with Koki Amare, who is going to be hungry for the biggest opportunity she'll get in this tournament, while Misa Matsui takes on Myla Grace, and both of them are looking to stay alive in this tournament if they'll even be able to. We get an overall show rating of 50 as we increase our popularity in 45 regions once again. We've made another $3,121 from tonight, and once again we have popularity growth but no change across the board except for Japan. And coming out of night 8, we have the exciting news that Koki Amare has fully recovered from her injury, and for the back half of the tournament coming up, she will be at 100%. And we also have news that Mai Sakurai has accepted our contract offer, and she will now be making $300 per show and saving us a lot of money every month as well. Now we kick off night 9 of the Dream Star Grand Prix, which is being held in front of 150 people in Ryogoku KFC Hall. And we start the show with Misa Matsui and Momoka Hanazono teaming up against Myla Grace and Kohaku. And Momoka comes away with the win for her team when she pins Kohaku with a roll-up. Misa Matsui has the best in-ring performance with a 48, Kohaku gets a 40, Momoka with a 38, and Myla Grace was the weak link with a 19, and she was really off her game as well. We get a segment rating of 42, then we get to Natsumi Shozuki and Natsu Sumire teaming up against Mai Sakurai and Kizuna Tanaka, and Natsumi Shozuki picks up the victory by pinning Kizuna Tanaka with a Meteora. Natsu Sumire actually does the best in the match as she gets an in-ring performance of 42. Natsumi Shozuki isn't far behind with a 40. Mai gets a 38 and Kizuna with a 33. Not too bad from anyone in the match, and we get a segment rating of 43. After that, Unagi Sayaka and Rhea Seto team up against Fallon Henley and Yuki Minami, and Rhea Seto comes away with the win by submission over Yuki Minami. Unagi Sayaka had the best in-ring performance with a 57, Fallon Henley quite a ways down with 32, and Rhea Seto and Yuki Minami both way further down with an 18 and 16 respectively, and Rhea Seto was really off her game as well. Segment rating of 43 is not awful at all. Then we get Miku Aono and Yuna Manase facing off with Koki Amare and Koharu Hinata, and Miku Aono picks up the victory by pinning Koharu with a double arm suplex. Miku also does the best in the match with a 47. Yuna Manase isn't too far behind her with 42. Koki Amare in her first match free of her injury pulls a 36, and Koharu Hinata gets a 34. Segment rating of 47 is pretty solid for this one as well. Then we get our final tag team match of the night as Utami Hayashishita teams up with Nao Ishikawa to face Nagisa Nozaki and Komomo Minami. And it's now Ishikawa picking up the win for her team, pinning Komomo with an NAO. Utami also gets the best in-ring performance as usual, she gets a 53. Nagisa is not too far behind at all with a 50. Now Ishikawa gets a 29, and Komomo is the weak link with a 16. But we get a segment rating of 47, which is pretty good to close out the first half of the show. And we get to our first tournament match, where Chiaki faces Victoria Yuzuki. And both of these women are looking to get to 4 points, as they are currently sitting on 2. And it is Chiaki who pulls away with the victory, pinning Yuzuki in just under 12 minutes. Yuzuki does get the better in-ring performance with a 40, but Chiaki isn't too far behind with a 36. And a segment rating of 43 for this one is pretty good as well. And coming up next for Chiaki, she gets a big opportunity against one of the current block leaders who could be the decisive block leader by the end of the night, Takumi Iroha, while Victoria Yuzuki is going to have a tall mountain to climb in getting to 4 points when she faces the veteran of the tournament, Nanae Takahashi. Moving on to the second A block match of the night, Nanae Takahashi faces Zeta Steel, and Nanae picks up the victory in 10 minutes 22 seconds with a Nana Rocker to get another 2 points on the board, which brings her up to 6, and Zeta Steel remains at 4. Nanae does get the better in-ring performance as well with a 51, and Zeta Steel gets a 25. A decent segment rating of 46 for this one. And coming up next for each of the competitors, the victorious Nanae Takahashi, as we mentioned, will be facing Victoria Yuzuki, while Zeta Steel is going to be in the opener of Night 11 against one half of the Marigold Twin Star champions, Mirai. And speaking of Mirai, we get to her versus Chika Goto, and in possibly the biggest upset of the tournament so far, Chika Goto pulls away with the victory in 11 minutes and 22 seconds after a quick roll-up catches Mirai by surprise. So in Mirai's rocky road to the top, she has hit another hurdle and she remains at 6 points, while Chika Goto finally has her first 2 on the board, and they are a big 2 points, pinning a champion here in Marigold. Mirai does get the better performance of the match as she pulls a 55, but Chika Goto didn't do too bad herself with a 30, and as we mentioned earlier, she does have that strong connection with the young female demographic who really liked to see her winning. Segment rating of 49 is pretty good. And up next for Chika Goto, who finally has some points to her name, she has a very big opportunity, the biggest that she will get in this tournament, when she faces the Marigold World Champion Sari, while as we mentioned a few moments ago, Mirai will be facing Zeta Steel, and looking to get momentum back on her side and hopefully not hit any more hurdles heading into the final few nights of the tournament. And we get to our semi-final match of the evening, and it's a big one, block leadership on the line, as Bozilla faces Takumi Iroha. And after almost 16 minutes, Takumi Iroha does defeat Bozilla to earn that top spot in the block, not by pinning her, but by wearing her down with a triangle choke for the victory. And not only does Takumi Iroha now have decisive leadership of the A block, she is also the first woman in either block to cross in to the double digits, as she is now sitting on 11 points. Takumi is still slowed by injury, and she actually pulls a 70, which might be the highest rating that we've ever had, and Bozilla is quite a ways down there with only a 37. Segment rating of 65 for the best match of the night so far. And up next for Takumi Iroha is Chiaki, who may no longer be in the running in this tournament, but she is going to be very hungry for an opportunity against the woman at the top of the block, while Bozilla meets the other biggest competitor in the tournament, Megan Bain, and both of them are going to be very hungry for the top spot in that chase against Takumi Iroha. And finally, we get to the main event, where the Marigold World Champion Sari faces Megan Bain. And for just the second time in Marigold, Sari is defeated by Megan Bain. And Megan has now tied herself at 3rd place in the block with Sari, as both of them sit on 8 points. Sari is still in amazing form, and she pulls the best performance of the match with a 59. And Megan Bain doesn't do too bad herself with a 45, and we get a segment rating of 60 for our main event. And Sari is going to be hoping that momentum is not a factor when she faces Chika Goto, fresh off of Goto's first win in the tournament, and she has just suffered a defeat, while Megan Bain is going to be looking to prove herself as the biggest and baddest in Marigold against Bozilla. We get an overall show rating of 58 for this one, and it increases our popularity in 49 regions. We only made $939 on this show. We are running in a smaller venue, so that does make sense. And we have seen some growth across the board even going up a popularity point in the US and in Canada, as well as Mexico actually. And we've even seen some small growth in Chugoku, Shikoku, Kyushu, and Hokkaido in Japan. So a pretty good night for Marigold in terms of popularity. And from there we get straight into night 10 of the tournament, which is being held in front of 200 people at 2AW Square. And the show kicks off with Mirai and Kizuna Tanaka teaming up against Zeta Steel and Natsu Sumire. And Zeta Steel picks up the victory for her team by pinning Kizuna Tanaka. Mirai gets the best performance of the match with a 49, although Natsu Sumire is not too far behind with a 43. Kizuna pulls a 32 and Zeta Steel pulls a 26. And Mirai comes out of this one with a bruised tailbone, unfortunately, but she should still be able to work through the rest of the tournament. I don't think that's going to keep her out of action, but we get a segment rating of 41 and get the show off to a strong start before we get to Nanai Takahashi teaming up with Kohaku against Victoria Yuzuki and Koharu Hinata, and Kohaku picks up the victory for herself and Nanai by pinning Koharu Hinata with a sunset from Swan Dive. Nanai Takahashi does get the best in-ring performance with a 48. Kohaku isn't too far behind her with 40. Victoria Yuzuki with a 38 and Koharu with a 36. So pretty decent from everybody, and a pretty good segment rating of 47 for this match. Then we have Sari and Yuna Manase teaming up against Chika Goto and Yuki Minami. And Sari, of course, picks up the victory by pinning Yuki Minami with a Sunray dropkick. Sari is, of course, head and shoulders above everyone else. She is still in amazing form, and she pulled an in-ring performance of 61. The next highest, Yuna Manase with a 43, Chika Goto with a 33, and Yuki Minami, as usual, is the weak link with a 17. But a pretty good segment rating of 49 for this match, as we get to Bozilla and Momoka Hanazono teaming up once again against Megan Bayne and Komomo Minami. And it is Momoka picking up the victory by pinning Komomo with a spear. Megan Bayne does get the best in-ring performance with a 46, and Bozilla isn't too far behind her at 41. Momoka was really off her game and got a 33, while Komomo Minami was the weak link once again with a 19. And she also sustained a fractured cheekbone in this match, which is our second injury of the night, but thankfully it's not someone who is in the tournament. We get a segment rating of 38, which is a little underwhelming, but it's not too bad at all. And we get to our final tag team match of the night, when Chiaki and Rhea Seto team up against Takumi Iroha and Nao Ishikawa. And Nao Ishikawa pins Rhea Seto for the victory with an NAO. Takumi Iroha once again gets the best performance in the match. She is still slowed by injury, but she gets a 65. Chiaki was off her game and pulled a 35, and Nao Ishikawa isn't too far behind her with a 30. And Rhea Seto was the weak link as usual, pulling a 19. We get a segment rating of 51 for this one, before we get on to tonight's B block matches. And tonight's tournament action kicks off with Misa Matsui facing Myla Grace. And Misa Matsui picks up the victory in 11.5 minutes by pinfall with a Maru x Maru suplex. And while Misa is still in the running with this victory, she does have a chance to lose that on night 11, so she is going to have to build a big hot streak and just hope for the best with the other results, as she has risen to 5 points in the tournament, and Myla Grace is still at just 2. Misa also gets the better in-ring performance with a 47, and Myla only gets a 20, but a decent segment rating of 42. And up next for each of these two, Misa Matsui will be facing Koki and Mare on night 11 of the tournament, while Myla Grace looks to finally get some more points on the board against Fallon Henley. From there, we get to the champion versus champion encounter as the Superfly champion Natsumi Shozuki faces one half of the Twin Star champions Mai Sakurai. And after a rough start to the tournament, Mai Sakurai finally is starting to turn things around as she pins Natsumi Shozuki after a stunner and gets herself another 2 points, taking her to 5. Natsumi Shozuki is still ahead of her at 7. And Natsumi also gets the better in-ring performance with a 42, and Mai Sakurai with a 38. A segment rating of 44 is pretty decent, and up next, Mai Sakurai might have her toughest test yet in the tournament against Utami Hayashishita, while Natsumi Shozuki has another champion versus champion match in the main event of Night 11 against Miku Aono. Up next, Unagi Sayaka faces off with Fallon Henley, and after a crushing loss to Natsumi Shozuki on Night 8, Unagi does finally get to 10 points in the tournament as she pins Fallon Henley in 12 minutes and 38 seconds. Unagi gets the better in-ring performance as well with a 48, and Fallon gets a 27, and we get a decent segment rating of 47 for this one as well. As coming up on night 11, Unagi Sayaka will be looking to get more points on the board against another woman who's been on a hot streak in the tournament, Nagisa Nozaki, while Fallon Henley will be facing off with Myla Grace and hoping that she won't face any more tough losses and have a chance to make it to the finals. We then get to Mikua Ono and Koki Amare facing off, and these two women put up one hell of a fight against the other, going for 20 minutes until the time limit expires. So an additional 1 point for Miku and an additional 1 point for Koki, which is not how she was looking to get out of her only 1 point position, as she now is up to just 2 across 6 matches. Miku does get the better in-ring performance of the match with a 50, and Koki Amare gets a 35. And they also have pretty good chemistry when fighting each other, and it lifted the match for a very good segment rating of 52. And up next, as we mentioned, Mikua Ono will be facing Natsumi Shozuki in the main event of night 11 of the tournament, while Koki Amare is still fighting for her first win of the tournament when she takes on Misa Matsui. And finally, we get to our main event of the night, where Utami Hayashishita takes on Nagisa Nozaki, and they push towards the 20-minute time limit. But after 19 minutes and 5 seconds, Utami Hayashishita gets the victory over Nagisa Nozaki. And while neither of these women are currently topping the block, they are both in second place, and Utami does hold that tiebreaker over Nagisa, which means that Nagisa is going to be hoping for Utami to stumble once again in this tournament, and Utami is going to have to keep riding this momentum that she's been building for the ultimate comeback to make it to the finals of the tournament. But coming up next for these two women, Utami Hayashishita will be facing one half of the Marigold Twin Star champions Mai Sakurai, while Nagisa is looking to secure her spot in this tournament with something that Utami does not have, a win over the leader of the block, Unagi Sayaka. And we finished the show with an overall rating of 57, which again increases our popularity in 49 regions. And we get to take a look at the injury report, as Mirai and Komomo will both be working through their injuries, Mirai for 7 days and Komomo for 22 days, but neither of them will take too long to get back to full health. We made $1,951 tonight, as we ran a bit of a bigger venue than we did last night, and we are once again getting some gradual popularity growth throughout most of the regions of the world, including Chugoku, Shikoku, Kyushu, and Hokkaido, but no big changes like we saw last night. And just before we get into back-to-back double block nights, we're going to take a look at the current tournament standings. As in the A block, Takumi Iroha currently has the lead on 11 points. Bozilla is in second place with 9 points. Suri and Megan Bain both in third place with 8 points, and Megan Bain holds the tiebreak over Suri. Mirai and Nanai Takahashi are both tied in 4th place with 6 points each. Chiaki and Zeta Steel are both out of the running at only 4 points, and tied for last place at 2 points each. Chika Goto and Victoria Yuzuki are also both out of the running. In the B block, things seem a lot tighter, as Unagi Sayaka takes the lead with 10 points. Second place is a tie between Utami Hayashishita and Nagisa Nozaki with 8 points each, and Utami holds the tiebreak over Nagisa. Just behind them in third place, Mikua Ono and Natsumi Shozuki both have 7 points, and the result of their match was a tie. Fallon Henley is still in the running with 6 points, as are Mai Sakurai and Misa Matsui both at 5 points, while in last place, Koki Amare and Myla Grace only at 2 points each. But we kick off night 11 in Shinjuku Face in front of 526 people with A block action as Mirai faces Zeta Steel, and Mirai picks up the victory in 11 minutes and 27 seconds, submitting Zeta with a Miramare. Mirai was slowed by injury, but she did get the better performance of the match with a 47, while Zeta Steel gets a 25. And we get a segment rating of 43 for the opening match to get the show off to a strong start. And Mirai, who is very aware that if she fails again, she is likely out of the tournament, will be facing Victoria Yuzuki on night 12. While Zeta Steel, who may be out of the running, knows that she has a big opportunity against the current block leader, Takumi Iroha. And in our first B block match of the night, Myla Grace faces Fallon Henley, and Fallon continues to stay alive in the tournament by submitting Myla Grace in just under 10 minutes with a rear naked choke. And Fallon has now taken herself to 8 points in the tournament, while Myla Grace remains at 2 at the very bottom. Fallon does get the better in-ring performance with a 30, and Myla Grace with a 20, so not a great match, and only a segment rating of 28. Coming up next for these two, Fallon Henley has her biggest opportunity in the tournament against the United National Champion Miku Aono, which could be make or break for her, while Myla Grace and Koki Amare will be facing off, and both of them are looking to make it past that 2-point spot at the very bottom. Back in the A block, Nanai Takahashi faces Victoria Yuzuki, and experience does prevail when Nanai defeats Yuzuki in 12.5 minutes with a Nana rocker. Nanai now sits at 8 points, still well in the running in this tournament, while Yuzuki remains at 2. Nanai also gets the better in-ring performance with a 49, though Yuzuki didn't do too bad herself with 37, and we get a pretty good segment rating of 50 for this match. And coming up next for each of these women, Nanai Takahashi will have her hands full with one of the biggest competitors in the tournament, Megan Bayne, while Victoria Yuzuki gets a big opportunity against one half of the Twin Star champions, Mirai. And up next in the B block, Koki Amare faces Misa Matsui, and Koki is still looking for her first win of the tournament, but she is not going to find it here as Misa pins her in just under 13 minutes with a roll-up. And while it is quite heartbreaking for Koki to remain at just 2 points, Misa Matsui has secured her spot and kept herself alive tonight as she rises to 7. Misa also gets the better in-ring performance with a 44, and Koki is not too far behind her with a 37. Koki and Misa don't seem to click, and it made for an awkward bout, but still a segment rating of 45 is pretty decent. And coming up next for Misa Matsui in this tournament, she will be facing Utami Hayashishita in what could be make or break for her and her chances of staying alive in the B block, while Koki Amare, as we mentioned earlier, will be facing Myla Grace in a bit of a tiebreaker for the bottom spot, and Koki will be looking to get her very first win in this tournament. Then we get to Sari facing Chika Goto, and although Chika is riding a lot of momentum after her first win, she cannot defeat the Marigold World Champion Sari, who pins her in just over 12 minutes with a Sunray dropkick. Sari, of course, getting the better performance of the match with a 66, and Chika Goto was off her game as she got a 27. A segment rating of 57 is pretty solid though. And up next for the world champion, Sari is going to be facing Bozilla in a match that has been anticipated all tournaments long, while Chika Goto will be going one-on-one with Chiaki, and both women are looking to get some more points to their name even if they can't win. Back in the B block, Nagisa Nozaki faces Unagi Sayaka, and while she has had a lot of big wins in the tournament, this could be considered her biggest as she becomes the second woman in the B block to get to 10 points and defeats Unagi Sayaka like Utami Hayashishita could not, and secures herself a potential 3-way tiebreaker if it comes to it. Unagi does get the better in-ring performance with a 53, but Nagisa is right behind her with a 49, and a very good segment rating of 56 for this match. And up next on night 12, Nagisa Nozaki will be looking to ride that momentum and possibly be the first woman to get to 12 points when she faces the reigning Superfly champion Natsumi Shozuki. And Unagi Sayaka will have a big opportunity of her own when she faces one half of the Twin Star champions and her former teammate in Cosmic Angels, Mai Sakurai. Moving on to the penultimate A block match for the night, Bozilla and Megan Bayne meet in a massive clash, and neither of these women can put the other down as they go the full 20 minutes until the time limit expires. This brings Bozilla to 10 points in the A block and Megan Bayne to 9, so Bozilla is still just ahead of her, and both of these women pulled an in-ring performance of 37, and Megan Bayne was really off her game. The bout also dragged in the middle, and the segment rating is only a 33. But coming up next for these two, Bozilla has a big main event spot on night 12 against Sari, while Megan Bayne faces the veteran of the tournament and looks to get back into the running when she meets Nanai Takahashi. Moving on to our second to last B block match, Utami Hayashishita faces Mai Sakurai, and after almost 15.5 minutes, Utami does continue her big wave of momentum against Mai by pinning her with a Samoan drop. And in the biggest comeback of the tournament so far, Utami has risen to 10 points at last with this victory over Mai Sakurai, and that puts herself, Nagisa Nozaki, and Unagi Sayaka into a 3-way deadlock at the top of the block, but that could all change on night 12 and night 14. Utami does of course get the better in-ring performance as well with a 56, and Mai Sakurai was really off her game, pulling a 30. But a pretty good segment rating of 53 for this one. And up next in the tournament, Utami Hayashishita will face the speed star Misa Matsui, who is going to be fighting with her life to stay alive in this tournament, while Mai Sakurai, as we mentioned earlier, will be having a personal match with Unagi Sayaka, her former teammate and mentor.
We then get to our final A block match of the evening, where Chiaki meets Takumi Iroha, and in what could be the new biggest upset of the tournament, Chiaki defeats Takumi Iroha by taking advantage of the 20 count. So it's not a clean victory for Chiaki, but 2 points are 2 points, and she rises to 6, while Takumi Iroha remains still at the top of the block with 11. Takumi is still slowed by injury, but managed to pull an incredible rating of 74. And Chiaki is not doing too bad for Chiaki standards with a 32. A segment rating of 67, the best match of the night so far, and possibly the best match of the tournament. As up next on night 12 of the tournament, Chiaki will be facing Chika Goto and looking to continue this wave of momentum into the end of the tournament, as Takumi Iroha needs to bounce back and keep her spot at the top of the block when she faces Zeta Steel. We then get to our main event as the United National Champion Mikuwa Ono faces the Superfly Champion Natsumi Shozuki, and after 18.5 minutes, Miku does pick up the victory over the Superfly Champion, and with victories over both Natsumi Shozuki as well as Mai Sakurai, she has secured her spot as the top champion in the B block, even if she is not the highest scorer. Miku does get an in-ring performance of 53, and Natsumi is not too bad either with a 43. And we get a segment rating of 56 for our main event. As coming up next for these two in the tournament, Mikuwa Ono will be facing Fallon Henley of NXT, while Natsumi Shozuki faces one of the women at the top of the block, Nagisa Nozaki. And we end night 11 of the Dream Star Grand Prix with an overall rating of 55, increasing our popularity in 52 regions. And we do end up losing $3,152 on this show due to our pretty exorbitant show costs. But we increase our popularity in just about every region of the game except for Kanto, and of course India, where we're not being shown. And finally, we get on to night 12 of the tournament, which is being held in front of a sold-out crowd of 400 people in Narimasu Act Hall, and we kick off with Koki Amare versus Myla Grace. And at long last, Koki does pick up her first victory in the tournament, in her second to last match of the tournament, when she pins Myla Grace in just over 10 minutes. Koki has now risen to 4 points in the B block, and Myla remains at just 2, but neither of them are still in the running, and they are just playing for pride at this point. Koki does get the better in-ring performance as well with a 35, and Myla Grace gets a 19, and we get a segment rating of 31. As coming up on the final night of the tournament, Koki is not really fighting for anything other than playing spoiler against Unagi Sayaka, while Myla Grace gets a big opportunity on the final night when she faces the Superfly champion Natsumi Shozuki. We then get to our first A block match of the night where Chiaki faces Chika Goto, and Chiaki has been on a bit of a hot streak lately, and that continues when she defeats Chika Goto in just under 11 minutes. Chiaki now climbs to 8 points, and while she is out of the running in the tournament, she is still fighting with everything that she has and making her name, while Chika Goto remains at just 2 points, but those did come from a big victory over one half of the Twin Star champions Mirai. Chiaki gets the better performance despite being off her game as she pulls a 31, and Chika Goto gets a 27. A segment rating of 31 is decent for these two. As coming up on the final night of A block action, Chiaki will be facing Zeta Steel, while Chika has a giant task ahead of her playing spoiler for Bozilla. Getting to our second B block match of the night, Mai Sakurai faces Unagi Sayaka, and with a lot of history between these two, the 20-minute time limit is not enough to contain it, and they go the distance, each getting themselves a point on the board. This takes Unagi Sayaka to 11, and Mai Sakurai, who has been out of the tournament for a few matches now, has risen to 6 points. Unagi also gets the better in-ring performance with a 52, while Mai Sakurai gets a 33. And a segment rating of 48 is pretty decent. As on the final night of B block action, as we mentioned, Unagi Sayaka will be facing Koki Amare, and she'll be hoping that Koki's win tonight was just a fluke, and she is not going to build momentum and possibly spoil Unagi's chances in this tournament, while Mai Sakurai will be in the first B block match of night 14 when she faces Fallon Henley, and she's just fighting to keep more people from earning the right to challenge for the Twin Star Championship. From there, we get to Zeta Steel taking on Takumi Iroha, and coming into this one, Zeta is well aware that she does not really stand a chance against Takumi, and she attempts to employ the strategy that brought Chiaki a victory last night, but she ends up getting both of them counted out, and while Zeta gets 1 point on the board, so does Takumi. So Takumi has gone up to 12 and remains firmly at the top of A block, while Zeta Steel, who has been out of the running for a while now as well, is at just 5 points. Takumi is still slowed by her injury, but she pulled a 64 in this one, and Zeta Steel with just a 24, and a pretty good segment rating of 54. As coming up next for Zeta Steel, she will be facing Chiaki in the first A block match of Night 13, while Takumi Iroha is in the main event of Night 13 with the chance to bring it home against Nanai Takahashi. Now we get to the reigning Superfly champion Natsumi Shizuki facing Nagisa Nozaki, and after 14.5 minutes, it is Nagisa who picks up the victory by pinning the Superfly champion. And while Nagisa is over the weight limit for the Superfly championship, it is still very momentous for her to pick up a victory over a champion, as she becomes the first woman to get to 12 points in the B block. Nagisa does get the better performance of the match as well with a 48, while Natsumi didn't do too bad at all with a 44. And a pretty good segment rating of 53. As coming up on the final night for Nagisa Nozaki, she will be facing Misa Matsui in a match that could very well decide the block, while Natsumi Shizuki, as we mentioned, will be facing Myla Grace and looking to keep another challenger away from her Superfly championship. We then move on to Nanai Takahashi taking on Megan Bayne, and it is Megan Bayne who picks up the victory after 16 minutes by pinning Nanai Takahashi. And Megan keeps herself alive in this tournament for another day at 11 points, and she will have a chance to make it to the finals, while Nanai Takahashi is now officially out of the running at 8 points. Nanai does get the better in-ring performance just slightly with a 48, and Megan Bayne gets a 47, and we get a segment rating of 54. And Megan's opportunity to win the tournament is going to come against Victoria Yuzuki, who has only pulled 2 points in this tournament so far, so it would be a massive upset for Megan to not pull away with the victory over Yuzuki, while Nanai Takahashi is playing spoiler for the woman at the very top of the block, Takumi Iroha, in the main event of Night 13. We then get the United National Champion Mikuwa Ono facing Fallon Henley, and not only does Miku thwart another challenger for her title, she also ends Fallon's chances in this tournament when she pins her in just under 15 minutes. Fallon is now officially out of contention in the tournament, as Miku stays alive in second place on 11 points. Miku does also get the better in-ring performance with a 54, while Fallon gets a 33, and a segment rating of 52 is pretty good for this one. As on Night 14, Miku will be facing Utami Hayashishita, and depending on the results of tonight, Utami might just be playing spoiler to the United National Champion. And though Fallon may be out of the tournament, she does still have a big opportunity facing one half of the Twin Star champions, Mai Sakurai. And moving on to the next A block match, Mirai faces Victoria Yuzuki, and at this point, any loss might just end the tournament for Mirai, but she is still in it for now as she submits Yuzuki with a Miramare in just over 15 minutes. Mirai is now sitting at 10 points, still in the running, but it is a very narrow chance that she will make it to the finals, while Yuzuki remains at the bottom with just 2 points. Mirai, despite being slowed by injury, still gets the better in-ring performance with a 51, and Yuzuki gets a 39, which is not too bad for her, and a segment rating of 52 is pretty solid as well. And while it is a slim chance that Mirai will make it to the finals, she will be facing Sari on Night 13 of the tournament, so even if she doesn't make it, she may earn a victory over the Marigold World Champion. While Yuzuki, as we mentioned earlier, will be facing Megan Bayne and undergoing that very tall task of playing spoiler to the Megasus. And in our semi-final match, Utami Hayashishita faces Misa Matsui, who has to be heartbroken as after earlier tonight's result, she is no longer in the tournament and she is just playing spoiler. But she does not play hard enough as Utami Hayashishita gets the victory in just under 18 minutes. Utami has now climbed to 12 points and tied herself in first place after a very rough start, and in this current position she would be making it to the finals due to the result of her match with Nagisa Nozaki where she was victorious. While Misa Matsui remains at just 7 points, but she has had a performance to be proud of. Utami does get the better in-ring performance tonight with a 53, and Misa was pretty close to her with a 49. We get a segment rating of 57 for this match. And coming up on Night 14, Utami Hayashishita finds herself in a very favorable position, facing the United National Champion Mikuwa Ono, and for Utami it is as simple as win and you're in, while Misa Matsui will be facing Nagisa Nozaki, who is going to be preying hard on Utami Hayashishita's downfall to keep her chances at making the finals alive. And finally, we get to our main event, where the Marigold World Champion Suri faces Bozilla, and while many would be expecting the champion to be defeated, Suri pulls out what could be an upset, as she defeats Bozilla by pinning her after almost 17 minutes. And even in defeat, Bozilla does remain in the tournament, standing at 10 points currently, while Suri has risen to the joint top of the block, tied with Takumi Iroha at 12 points. But she knows that Takumi holds that tiebreak over her, and if the scores remained the same, she would not be making the finals. Suri continues to be in amazing form and got an in-ring performance of 62, while Bozilla didn't do too bad with a 38, and a segment rating of 60 for our main event. As coming up on the final A block night, Suri will be facing Mirai, and hoping for a victory for herself and a loss for Takumi Iroha to make it to the finals. While Bozilla still has an outside chance of making the tournament final through a tiebreak, but she is going to have to defeat Chika Goto to get there. And we finish night 12 of the tournament with a 59 overall rating, and we increase our popularity in 52 regions. Although we do suffer an even bigger financial hit than last night, as we lose $5,013, but we continue to grow in popularity across the board, including a few slight changes in Chugoku, Shikoku, Kyushu, and Hokkaido, going from 27 to 28. And just before we bring an end to the video, we are going to take one final look at the tournament standings. Currently at the top with 12 points each, the Marigold World Champion Suri and the outsider Takumi Iroha are tied. In second place, Megan Bain has her spot secured at 11 points, while down but not out of the running, Mirai and Bozilla are both at 10 points. Then for those without a chance of winning the tournament, Nanai Takahashi and Chiaki are both tied at 8, Zeta Steel is at 5 points, and Chika Goto and Victoria Yuzuki are both tied at the bottom with 2 points. Over in the B block, things are a lot more top-heavy, as Utami Hayashishita and Nagisa Nozaki both sit at the top on 12 points, and second place is a tie between Mikuwa Ono and Unagi Sayaka, both at 11, while out of the running, Fallon Henley at 8 points, Natsumi Shozuki and Bisa Matsui both at 7 points, Mai Sakurai at 6 points, Koki Amare at 4 points, and Myla Grace at the bottom at 2 points. And that is going to bring an end to this video, so thank you so much for watching, and if you did enjoy, please make sure to leave a like, as that helps me out a lot. And I will be doing my best to be more consistent with uploads in the future. The Dream Star Grand Prix has been a big editing job, but I am very happy with how everything has turned out, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed this as much as I have. As coming up in episode 5, we have the tournament finals, and we will find out who is bringing home the crown, and who will be challenging the Marigold World Champion Suri when we get to First Dream on January 3rd. So without much more to say, that is going to bring an end to this one, and I will see you next time for episode 5.